Okay, it being after 5 o'clock, we'd like to get started with the committee meetings, and we'll begin with program and staffing. Agenda review and disposition.
Madam Chair, non-public we can do after the full board meeting.
Okay.
Hearing the credentials of two folks who will be nominated, one as an aide and one as a custodian.
Okay. All right. And approval of the minutes. If there were no changes, I would ask that they approved as written. Any comments? Okay. 2019-20 school calendar. Okay. Mark, do you have a way you want to run this part of it as far as public?
Honestly, I'd say public input.
Okay.
If you remember, there was a sense of there were questions, yep. And so the fair thing to do was say, you know, why don't we deal with this in a couple of weeks, and the board can get some input from the public during those 2 weeks, and also have another public hearing.
Sure.
So here we are.
Okay, and as the calendar stands now, we would begin the school year on August 26th of 2019. That's a Monday, August 26th, right before Labor Day. And this is up for discussion. Before we get to the public, did any board members hear from folks that they want to share information about in the last couple weeks?
Several different organizations,
okay.
Tourism or businesses related to the tourism industry, asking us to consider starting after Labor Day.
Okay. Okay.
But they all, they're talking about also not starting before the end of August.
Okay. All right. I received letters as well, mostly from the tourism industry and business owners. I received one letter from a parent, all of those folks in support of starting after Labor Day. But I suspect we will have a number of folks here who want to have input. Would like to?
Yeah, I'll lead off.
Mr. Boyd?
You know, at the water park, we had a social media blast we put out. I don't know if anybody saw that. And I will say that there was argument both for and against. Most were for starting after Labor Day. Those that were against largely misunderstood what we were asking for, and I just thought I'd start by clarifying what it is we're asking for, and really, more importantly, what we're not asking for. We are not asking for the students to spend any less time in the classroom. Same school year, start time would be 4 days later. That's what we're asking for. So same amount of class time, same length of summer. Summer doesn't change in length. We are not asking for any impact on athletics. I've contacted NHIAA. The start of our school year does not impact when athletics can start and when games start. Having two student athlete daughters of my own, that's a big deal for me. I don't want student athletes to be harmed in any way because, as I said in the last meeting, we feel that athletics breed what makes a good employee: responsibility, accountability, teamwork, self-respect, respect for others. So we don't want that to happen, and from talking to NHIAA, it won't have an impact, and nor do we want it to. There's been a lot of discussion about the fact that it's hot in June, and if we go later in June, it's hot in June. And the reality is, you know, if you just look at the historical perspective, the average temperature in June, if you round up, is 78 degrees. The average high temperature in August, if you round up, is 81 degrees. Hotter in August. Beyond that, nobody is more in tune with the weather than the person that runs a water park. And if you look at the last decade or so, you can go beyond historical data and say, you know what, June today is a lot more like May used to be. In September today, particularly the first 2 weeks in September, is a lot more like what August used to be. So in the last decade, we've seen that historical perspective shift even further, August being better weather. We are not, from the Whalesdale Water Park's perspective, we are for local control. We do not want the government to take over this decision. The last thing we need is the government to make more bad decisions. That said, local control, for that to work, needs local voices to be heard and this to be a local decision. And the reason it's gotten to the Governor's Council is because it's so impactful to our state. We were just having a conversation over here a couple minutes ago about the tremendous impact it has on our state and our economy, and particularly as a tourism area that Plymouth is, it has an even bigger impact here. Last thing I want to say, and this was from some social media conversations, this is not about business dictating the schools do. This is just some small business operators here asking to be heard and be considered when you make this decision that has a huge impact on us. That's all this is. This is not Amazon making a decision for the school board. This is small businesses and family-owned companies making a request to be heard. That said, through all the conversations we've had, right, there's been a lot of conversations about negatives to kids that are largely a wash, right? It's hot in June, it's hot in August. Through all those conversations, we've seen nothing but a positive impact this would have on the student body here at Plymouth Regional High School. I'll start number one with earning power. When they get out of school in early June, there's not a lot of demand for workers because the tourism industry hasn't hit its stride yet. So even though they're available for employment, there's not a lot of employment to be had. There's not a lot of earning for them to be had. In August, they're all highly sought after. We need every single one of them to work. So their earning power increases. Mr. Parsons and I had a conversation on the phone in August about the fact that we've seen in my 22 years at the water park, there's always a decline in the quality of worker. As we were saying, his dad probably thinks that his generation is worse than his generation, right? It's those kids these days, you hear it. But in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a rapid drop-off in the quality of the employees. We feel that earning power, just an extra 4 days, gives them much more time in the workplace getting work skills. And talking on the phone with Mr. Parsons about what a quality graduate is. You know, my wife's an English teacher at this school, so they need to be able to write a paper. They need to be able to do math. They need to know science and history. That's important stuff. But if they're not employable, they're not a good graduate. So getting that extra time in the workplace is a benefit to these kids. Earning power. The weather is better in August. The family time that you get, having that extra day on the end of that last weekend for a family vacation, gives me as a family, as an employed individual, a chance to take a vacation 7 days and have an extra day just to get ready for work, or to take an 8th day where I don't have to take a vacation day to do it. So it's a benefit to the families. There are businesses out there that are forced because of 1 week in August, we've got a gentleman here that can speak to this, to hire foreign workers. 14, I believe he said? 14 foreign workers. That's taking the rest of the summer's worth of employment away from local kids, all because of that last week in August. So again, it offers kids more employment opportunities. The snow day discussion. There's been a lot of discussion. They have snow days and they end up going to school later in August. Well, if we have snow days, it makes no difference. Every year we're going to have snow days. It's a conversation I'd love to have with you on some possible solutions for snow days, but that's for a later date. You're going to have snow days, period. We're talking about 4 days. No matter what, they're going to get out of school 4 days later than they may have otherwise. So we're not looking at a big impact there in terms of snow days in June. And if they have snow days, is the if is the key statement there. They may not have snow days. We've seen winners do this in the past decade, right? So we're taking a gamble on them being guaranteed to have to go to school in hot weather if we have this start before Labor Day, or may having to go to school in hot weather in June based on snow days. So the way I look at it, you've got better weather, earning power, job training, family vacations. That's a net gain for students. Let's look at businesses. This is agreed Long-term struggle, starting before Labor Day in the business community, long-term struggle. That long-term struggle this year for other businesses in our states, and I can speak to businesses like mine, other areas in the state, Water Country, Kennedy Lake Park, Funtown, Splashdown. Those 3 businesses closed their doors for the last week in August. Closed their doors. That's a big, we do a lot of business. We're doing 1,500 people a day in the last week in August. A lot of money comes in the door. They close the doors. Because when you take a real world struggle, right, we've always had it. It's been a long time struggle, but then you add 2.5% unemployment, and a long-term struggle becomes a real-time nightmare. They didn't have enough employees to open, they closed their doors. So you say, okay, they lost 5 days. 5 days. Take a business like the Whale's Tail. We're in operation for 90 days. Losing 5 days at the Whale's Tail Water Park. And this really could happen. We closed rides last year with school starting after Labor Day. We were lucky last year. 5 days for us, for a 90-day operation, would be like Rand's True Value Hardware losing a full month. CCI losing a full month. Alex Ray losing a full month, losing July or December worth of revenue. That's debilitating for a small business. Net gain for students, net gain for businesses. The meeting makes this a no-brainer of a decision. I mean, we're talking about 4 days. It's not a month, it's not going to July, it's 4 days to move. And I would guess that with some creative work on the 3- and 4-day weekends that we've got on this calendar, that we could probably absorb 1 or 2 of those days. So now we're talking about 1 or 2 or 3 days instead of 4. And that's all we're asking, just to be heard. I think it's important for the local community to have a voice so we can keep local rules.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Are there any residents or folks in the district who have something that, a comment, or business owners within the district? Sure.
Sure. Tim Smith, President and General Manager of Waterville Valley. I'm also serve on the Waterville Valley School District board. And I've been here with 2 letters, one from the Waterville business community and one from the Waterville Valley Resort itself. And I really don't have much else to say. I think you said it beautifully. Net gains for students, net gains for businesses. In this community, we are highly dependent, obviously, on our tourism business. And August, let's be honest, it's a much better month than May or June for our kids to be out of school. I personally have 2 8-year-old sons. They go to the Waterville Valley School. I would much rather have them to me in August rather than in June. I think that overall it is a net, and I second everything you said.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other folks within the district who have something?
I'm from out of town.
Okay.
From Guilford, if we can speak here.
Sure, sure.
We're hopeful that, well, first of all, we own Sawyer's Dairy Barn. It's been in business for 75 years. And in the last 7, 8 years particularly, we've noticed a complete, in our view, American youth. It was a pretty pathetic point. This is subject for another discussion at another time. All I can tell you is that the economic impact on small businesses has a profound effect on the state. We don't have enough money coming in. Our taxes keep going up all the time, up, and the loss of revenue to the state of New Hampshire is substantial. There was a candidate for governor not long ago that promised me that if she was elected governor, she would call me and we'd sit down and quantify exactly how much the state is losing. I'm here to speak primarily to the revenue side of things, the economic impact that it has on small businesses. I think you heard everything, which was well stated. And all I can tell you is that my wife and I are 80 years of age. We work 17 hours a day, all summer long, 7 days a week. Keeps us going, of course, to mention this. But seriously, we're hoping that your decision here in Plymouth will be a model for the rest of the state, especially those areas that are affected by tourism.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Brooke Wakefield, and I'm a parent of 2 kids at Plymouth Elementary School, and I definitely would rather have the kids have the time in August than in June. I think it should go past Labor Day, but I'm willing to keep it as it is. I also represent the town of Waterville Valley, and they have the same vote.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
My name is April Smith. I work for Waterville Valley Resort, so I wanted to concur with what the preceding folks have expressed, but also I have a son that goes to the high school here, and just from a personal perspective, I would really like that last week in August. We can usually eke out a day or two to spend some time and do some things together that we often don't get to because he's working or I'm working the rest of the year. So that last week in August is critical.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment. Obviously, I'm a grandma, but I remember when I was younger that we always looked forward to the Labor Day weekend. It was a family time. And I talked to a lot of parents that come in and they wish that they still had that.
Okay.
I don't know what happened, but we've always had snow, we've always had everything else, but for some reason, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
First, I want to thank you very much. My name is Jane O'Connor, and I'm from the White Mountain Attractions Association. So we have 300 some odd businesses, including the 17 big attractions in the region. Polo Gates, of course. We have businesses in Waterville Valley, down in Meredith, all the way up to Gorham, and then all the way to the Maine border and the Vermont border. So I thank you very much for the chance to talk about this, because we haven't had a chance to talk about it with some of the school districts. So it's really helpful for us. The Attractions Association has been working to improve the tourism economy for the people in the mountain region since 1958. And we have visitors from all over the world, and we are very fortunate to have people who live and work here and are able to live in an area that other people only get to visit. So I think that we're all very fortunate to be able to live in this area. The towns here are just an absolute treasure. You can only do that if it's sustainable and if the businesses are sustainable. So in recent years, we've really been affected by the shrinking of the summer season, both from the schools in the southern areas that changed, and now from our own region. So it sort of hits us from both ends, and it causes decrease in attendance, it causes a decrease in staffing, it causes layoffs to other hardworking people who can't work because some of the attractions have to close early, like and can be late. That means everyone loses their job that last week of August. So that's hard. It's hard on everybody. So I did ask several of our businesses, from gift shops to restaurants to high-end hotels to attractions, etc., to give me some comments about what happens. And these are just a few of them. The earlier school starts, the shorter August gets for our business. We end up closing parts of the business the week before Labor Day because the attendance just isn't there. Some businesses provide work training and teach work ethics to the students that will be important to them the rest of their lives. I know so many of our attractions, parents are so pleased to get their children in there working for their first summer jobs because they do. They learn how to count money, really how to count money. They learn work ethics. They learn to be there on time. They learn to talk to the public. They learn to communicate on something other than a cell phone. So these are all very important things that the students learn when they're out there in these attractions and businesses. The tourism economy is what feeds families in the region and other parts of the state. When we shorten the tourist season, all the businesses lose money, from electricians to schools to dentists to grocery stores. That means less hours for those workers. Another one is our restaurant is open limited hours once we get to late August. We lose all the school students to work here. What's happening to family time and family vacations and stuff enough the families together without losing that last week of August. Many of the students don't know the business skills that will carry them through. Many business owners started summer tourism jobs and went on to become entrepreneurs. I know we tend to think that we need to send our children off into the world to learn things, but there are so many people in, especially the White Mountain region, who started in tourism businesses, and they might have started as a hamburger flipper, as they say, where they're now the Alex Rays of the state. You know, you can start out, I think Scott Ray's another one. You start out in a business, a tourism business, and you learn from it. The goal is not to be that, to be in that low wage job your whole life. The goal is to aim for the manager's job, aim for the owner's job. We have to hire people from outside of the state of the area for full-time, good, well-benefited jobs, because our own students often are encouraged to leave or leave, and I'd rather see them be the ones that own the businesses, and them be the ones that run the attractions and do the business. So, and then one of the other questions I had was about the actual number of education hours. Is it actually, are they in more hours, or is it just 4 days it's more spread out? So thank you again very much for the opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you.
You know, along those lines, some of you may remember a kid named Jeremy Seifert, who was a student at this school. Jeremy, he struggled. He would write when he worked at the water park. He couldn't read. He couldn't read well. But he's now a very successful business owner in southern New Hampshire, Automation Innovations. He builds robotics platforms for major companies. If you ever watched the Discovery Channel, you may have seen a show called How and How Tech, where they built the world's fastest tracked vehicles. Jeremy got promoted to supervisor on TV on the Discovery Channel while working with those guys. And he still calls us today at the water park to talk about his experience there, where he was allowed to excel in his area of expertise, which was engineering. He couldn't read and write, but he was incredibly talented, and giving these kids that opportunity is, and we look at ourselves, speaking for one business here, we look at the future of these kids, and we're in a partnership. It's not us and you, this is a partnership to provide the future of some good kids.
Okay.
And I myself am a product of the area. I grew up at my family's inn and worked for tourism jobs and such after college back, and I now have a good job year-round. I do the marketing for the White Mountains. I enjoy it very much, and I feel very fortunate, and I'd love to have other students from the area who can do the same thing.
Okay, thank you so much. And we've heard quite a bit from the business community. Are there teachers or parents or anyone else that feels that one way or another, or has heard from others that they would like to go one way or another? No? Okay. Yes, Phil?
Can I ask a couple questions? Alan, have sending districts finalized their calendars?
No. No. In fact, the elementary schools really wait for the high school. The one of the comments that we got in our office were not pro or con on the start date. They were please coordinate. Because of childcare issues. But no, historically, Mr. McCormick, I've always got the high school calendar approved, then gone out to the sending districts and said, here's what the high schools do. Now, there are sending districts that say, I don't care about the high school, we're going to do what we want to do. And then there are others that adopt the high school calendar because they have listened to parents who said, you need to be coordinated.
If I can.
Yeah.
If we start after Labor Day, my assumption is unless we can find ways to make up those days during the school year, are we still obligated, too strong a term, but do we still plan a graduation on a Saturday because that accommodates families? If we have any snow days, well, one, if we open after Labor Day, that would extend that following Saturday, which would be the 13th.
Right.
And there's a likelihood then, if we have snow days, you could be looking at almost like the 20th for graduation.
Well, there are two issues. I'll break them down. One is the legislature this term is going to deal with high school graduation, to allow districts to set high school graduation and commit to high school graduation on that day. Because the legislature has been getting a lot of feedback. They moved my kid's graduation and I lost this airline ticket and I this and I that. So there is legislation proposed to allow districts to set a date, and then if it's 171 days or if it's 100 and whatever days, it doesn't matter, that's the high school day. So we're waiting to hear on graduation there. And then part two of it, basically we go, we meet the hours criteria, but the teachers' collective bargaining agreement calls for 185 work days, so we work with that.
And if I just a last comment on a question, and I stated this at a previous meeting when this issue came up.
Sure.
Having been a principal and superintendent and active principal in this building, I still find that maybe it's psychological. The kids, in my opinion, have a more difficult time staying on task when you have 90+ degree weather upstairs than it does in August.
Well, weather is not a huge factor, quite frankly, for Bruce and I. I mean, that gets thrown around a lot. What we can't control is the dates that are set for AP testing and statewide testing. So when you say, well, 4 days here or 4 days there, yeah, they are days. But if you would, they're weighted in many ways. The days prior to those testing dates are more valuable to us than the days after those testing dates. Mm-hmm. So we're certainly not anti-business at all. I know who pays the bills. I'm very sensitive to that, and and these folks will say there are districts that cram calendars through without much comment. We don't do that. I mean, the public is entitled to have a say, and you're their elected reps. But in terms of quality days, I mean, we're held to test scores, we're held to this. You guys scour those things as we try and sort out our strengths and weaknesses. If we are losing days prior to taking those tests, that has an impact on us, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. So and Bruce certainly can add to it on any other issue he wants, but that's the criteria that if someone were to say to me, why do you go so early? I love going after Labor Day. We particularly enjoyed this year because we were out because of construction and safety issues. And I think we all enjoyed the extra time. In fact, I made a comment to the teachers. I mean, we all grew up with that. Mm-hmm. But the reality now of high stakes testing and people's livelihoods based on testing results. So we're pretty serious about trying to get as much in as we can prior to those tests, and we can't. Those are dates that we're given. We don't have any call on those.
Yeah, Ross.
Two things. As the law now stands, do our seniors have to get a certain number of days before they can graduate?
Days or hours.
Okay.
So when we're running up against time, we start counting hours for the seniors.
Okay.
So that we don't disrupt the graduation date.
Well, I guess my question is, can we hold true to our June 6th graduation if the legislature doesn't change the law and add 4 more days on to the end of June?
We would be counting hours for you, so I don't have that figure right.
Okay.
I don't want to say yes, because I've never done that calculation.
Okay. And explain to me in concrete terms what your reference is to the days prior to testing to the days after testing. The 4 days in August occur before you are tested in October, is it?
March.
March.
You just stay testing in March.
As opposed to getting the 4 days in June, which is after testing is over.
Right.
Okay. Now I understand that part. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? So when is the testing in March?
March 27th this year.
Okay.
And those are all juniors. I've got to get through a certain part of the curriculum, especially math, which is algebra 2. And, I mean, depending on, as Mr. Boyd said, you don't know with snow. I mean, last year we had 11 and 6 delayed openings. mean, as a principal, that hurt. That hurt. I can't make that time up. And this year, we've already had 4 snow days and 4 delayed openings. You can't make that time up. Yeah, had them in June, but I've got to get that curriculum presented to the kids so they have the proper skills to be able to take that test when that test comes back. That's one thing we didn't have when we were kids. We weren't held to that, you know, and then they print them in the paper and then here you go. And the other piece that the students, and I hear you loud and clear, on my end, they're a heck of a lot more engaged when they come back in August than they are in June. It's pretty tough in June, especially when my seniors get out after the prom and all that piece, and you know, they're a lot more engaged. Plus, I've got close to 325 students here. Football, field hockey, volleyball, all those camps start that first week. That's not school sponsored. The second week is when the NHI opens up, and you've got close to 325 kids. This year, I didn't have any contact with those kids until after Labor Day, and they were playing games representing this high school. And I generally meet with all those kids to make sure that they know the proper rules and regulations. They do, but you want to let them know school's in session, even though they haven't been to school yet. So that's another big piece that's there.
Stan, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, so I guess another question taking off on that would be, so I get the question sometimes from people from other states when we start after Labor Day, and my question then is, well, do you have 2 spring breaks?
Right.
Because we have a February break and an April break, and so that kind of limits what we can do too. So my question would be, how many places do they start after Labor Day and have 2 spring breaks? And I don't know the answer to that. But the question would be, if you're trying to find days and you wanted to start after Labor Day, it seems to me the one approach could be combine your 2, February and April, into 1 spring break in March that matches the college or something like that. Mm-hmm. But then my question would be, we've heard from businesses that run in the summer a lot, what would that do to the winter businesses? And would we have winter businesses in here saying, and I know we have some.
I suspect Tim would be in here.
Yeah, and so that would be my question.
We did hold a public hearing a number of years ago up in the library. Remember that, Mr. Deitchman?
Oh, yes.
And with that concept, because Kathy Yeoman from Thornton, quite frankly, said, can we hold a public hearing and talk about doing a spring break like colleges do rather than 2 separate vacations? And the board naively said, sure, we'll hold a public hearing. The place was packed. People assumed that the board had already made a decision to do that and spent the evening ripping the board when all they were doing was getting public input. So it was pretty clear leaving the room that night that...
It was Mrs. Reva's finest moment.
Yeah,
If I may, to that point.
well, may I finish, Mr.
Yes,
Boyd?
no problem.
So, you know, that we stayed with those two vacations, and then the business community locally, and it was led by Steve Panagoulis, who was a selectman in Plymouth, who owned Steve's Restaurant, came and said, would you do us also another favor locally, and that is make sure that there's no overlap between the Massachusetts vacations and the New Hampshire vacations. So we've always gone out of our way to have that week after Washington's birthday, it would be the New Hampshire vacation, and the week after Patriots Day would be the spring break, so that Massachusetts would be up here, and there wouldn't be interference. The ski slopes wouldn't be overwhelmed with locals and kids from Massachusetts. So that's the history of where those vacation weeks went.
So the concern that I just feel a little bit is that, are you damned if you do, damned if you don't? Do you get it on this end or that end? And I think that's the struggle.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because you got to, from what I hear from the administration is, sure, you need those days to prepare adequately for the tests that you're held to.
Right.
And if you just throw them on to June, that doesn't help you at all.
Really?
So if you're trying to find the days to accommodate, which is a legitimate concern, I mean, I think everyone recognizes, where do you find them? And there's only so many places in the county you can find them, and the natural place is those February and April vacations, but then you create another problem.
Sure.
So,
if I may, there's been a bunch of points that I'd like to address. First of all, to the point of it, you know, it's tough to be in school when it's 90 degrees. It's tough to be focused when it's 90 degrees.
It's not a debate.
The trouble is, it's typically 90 degrees in August too. The school is air conditioned, so with the snow days, there's the chance that you could leave school later. With the proposed calendar, you're guaranteed. You're guaranteed to be to school when it's 9 degrees at the end of August, guaranteed. The June 6th graduation date. This year, we started after Labor Day. Will we make that date this year? June 6th?
I don't know. We'll see what this legislation does, Matt.
Yeah.
And also, we will start counting hours probably later in the week.
Okay. In terms of the days, and again, my kids take those tests, so I'm as concerned about it as anybody in this room. But you see on the schedule, and again, we're not dictating, we're just saying, look, it's a massive hardship for us that could close us for what would be a month's worth of business to a normal business. But October 11th is a teacher in service day. Could that be moved? I don't know. I'm not the guy that answers these questions. Veterans Day, with particularly going into the holiday season where they get a huge break.
That's a state statute.
That's a state, okay. All right, so again, I don't know, but could we get creative in any of these days that are out there? I don't know. I don't have the answers to these questions. I do agree that that's a hardship.
Well, we can walk through the days. There's a good reason for all the days.
I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, the contractual with the union, they can need to go 187, 185, 186,
Right.
depending on what we're working on regarding accreditation.
Does the union have a preference?
I sit with the union when I make
In
the
terms
calendar.
of these dates, or in terms of the,
Start date, these dates?
we have never had a formal discussion in terms of that. There's never been a vote, there's never been a specific discussion in terms of whether we should start early or whether we should start beyond that. So I can't give you a specific position because we're never actually thinking about it.
Okay, so any other comments from the board or questions for administration? Okay, anyone from the public yet who hasn't had a chance to speak? Yeah?
The one thing that I would like to say is this year, we've already had the number of snow days that we had, and our students, underclass students are scheduled to do 180 days. If we have more than 3 more snow days this year, by state law, we can't go to school after June 30th. After those three more snow days, we won't be able to do the 180 days because you run out of time at the end of June.
But the school year counts.
The school year counts, but there are 2 issues with that. Number one, you're missing now educational days,
Right.
and the teachers have a contract which you won't be able to complete the end of the contract because you run out of days by June 30th.
So two snow days, since it's such a big issue. If you look at Kearsarge, they speak very highly of the blizzard packs that they send home to kids on a snow day.
Right.
They compete.
We might need to discuss that at a different,
I get it, but
yeah.
there are ways around it. The other thing that I think this board should discuss, in the 13 years that I've had a kid in this SAU, there's been 1 early dismissal, and it was a nightmare, maybe 2. It was a nightmare, right? But I can tell you, if there were 6 inches of snow scheduled to fall tonight, and you had a kid in elementary school in this school, you would right now be thinking, you know what, I got a meeting at 10, I got to move it, right? You would make preparations for a 2-hour delay. If we had a 2-hour early release that was planned and scheduled and something that we could count on, that early release would make that 1 o'clock snow day not a snow day, it would be an early release. And that happens.
Okay.
It might not happen at all this year, but it does happen. It's happened many times since I've had kids here. If it was something that we could count on as parents, I would just say, you know what, I'm going to move the 1 o'clock meeting until tomorrow morning or until earlier this morning.
Okay.
I would plan on it and make it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Anyone else? Okay, so right now we need to, I believe, take a committee vote as to whether to move it on to the full board for a vote. And from committee.
I'll make a motion to move it.
Okay.
In its present form?
What is the?
To move it on to the full board.
But
to,
you need to.
all right, to whether to begin the school year as planned here with this school year calendar or to move it after Labor Day. So to adopt the proposed calendar that was set forth in our agenda, beginning August 26th. Okay, so we'll move that vote to the full board, right?
You're going to vote on it?
We'll vote on that, yes. So all in favor of moving that decision?
Committee members only.
Committee members, yes.
Committee members,
Yes.
they know who
I
they
have
are.
Walter, Phil, okay, Barbara, and Bernie, and myself, okay. All right, so anyone, that's everyone, so we'll move that on to the full board then. Okay. Nominations are for public, non-public session as of the full
Right,
board.
there are 2 nominations after non-public session, the support staff member and special ed aide.
Thank you. Okay, any other business? Okay. And we will not do a non-public session here then, we'll do it after the full board. Okay. So our next committee meeting will be February 18th, and do I hear a motion to adjourn this committee meeting? Barbara and Bernie, thank you. All in favor?
When is that board meeting?
All right, thank you. That's
Next committee meeting is policy and budget. That is Ross, Peter, Sam, Maureen, Phil, Tim. We have minutes of our prior meetings. Prior meeting. Any changes, corrections, additions, deletions?
All set.
If not, they'll be adopted as printed. Bargaining unit changes.
Yes.
I don't know if you...
Your packet, you will see that association, faculty association, with our support, and petitioned the Public Employee Labor Relations Board for 2 issues. One was to change the name of the association's group, and that has been approved, along with modifying the bargaining unit and the positions of driver ed teacher and nurse were removed from the bargaining unit, so the name now would be the Plymouth Regional Educators Association in New Hampshire, and the bargaining unit no longer contains the position of driver ed teacher and nurse. So that's just an update for...
Any comments, questions by the board? Okay, thank you, Mark. The next item, revenue appropriations updates. I think you got one of these gigantic things in your...
The chairman has the printed copy of appropriations, and it will be online for all board members to look at. And we would be happy to respond to any questions you have. Tim Narrow was in this week going over all the manifests that you have in front of you, and also reviewing appropriations and revenues. Also, the handout you all have when you walked in was a handout for revenues as of today. And you can see on the right-hand column, that is money that has come through the door. And then on the left-hand column, those are our targets in order to balance the budget. So we're pleased with the cash flow so far. And also, as you can see, local revenue tuition, we had estimated $400,000 in tuition billing to districts that are not members of the cooperative. And then we have done our final billing, and we have billed $458,219 to those districts. Those are our students that come to us from, a majority of them come from Waterville Valley, Ellsworth, or Warren.
Do you anticipate that will be your final number?
Sometimes if one of those kids leaves, it'll be prorated, but it'll be in the ballpark of
All right.
$50,000.
All right.
Question.
Yes.
A number of lines have that hashtag DIV/0 exclamation
Right.
point.
That means just the computer's going crazy and
Right.
can't figure out what's happening.
Do we have answers for those lines or not? No?
You can't divide by 0.
Well, I don't know why the computer did that, so that's the only answer I have for you. But the numbers speak for themselves.
Okay.
Down below, you'll see the assessments to the communities and the percentage paid. So right now, we're drifting toward about 50% of the school year. So you'll see most districts have sent in 50 to 45 to 55% of their. And as you know, your treasurer lives in Camden. So
Barbara, those all occur on, I can see, on lines that don't have any, any,
I see, zeros.
maybe the zeros or no number, so they weren't included in our tax rate analysis in the 25 or 23 or whichever it is out there. But we're getting, in some of them, some revenue, so that will impact on our final numbers, whatever that form they're put on, so. Back to appropriations. Isn't quite the happier mark, I guess, but it shows debt of $291.95. I'm sorry, $291,995.07 that's yet to be paid. Mark is taking it out because it has to be paid. And then $20,000 on the purchase of the land we made behind the building here. That has been paid. So we're left with $1,132,978 of available balance, which of course it isn't available because a number of things have not been clocked on to the to be paid, and others will change over a period of time. So, but it's a working number that we can be happy that we're positive and not negative. All right. Other business?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else on the board or the committee? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Committee stands adjourned.
CTE renovation update.
Yes, we are coming toward the finale of the renovation project, getting very close. The areas that we're spending some time, remaining time in, is the autos area and also the kitchen. In the kitchen, it is more so the vendors getting ready to start all of the machinery that's in the kitchen. And so we're proceeding slowly with that because we don't want to void any of the warranties. So we're working with the contractor and the subcontractors who are in there with exhaust fans in the major fan. And there's a lot of that stuff that has to be signed off on by state inspectors and also fire chief. So we're proceeding slowly in the kitchen. Autos is, the vendor has been in there, has done the lifts. There's some flooring issues that still need to be worked out and some other machinery. But moving right along, on Thursday, Mr. Parsons and I will attend the meeting, and the punch lists are beginning to be developed for the contractor for all 3 floors. We are in the top floor and the middle floor. Kids are in their classroom spaces, and it's just, quite frankly, the kitchen. Culinary arts kids are in their culinary classroom. They're just not participating in the kitchen right now until we get the vendors squared away and they're finalized and the warranties are intact. And then downstairs, the same thing. The autos kids are not in the auto shop yet. And again, it has to do with finishing up loose ends. So we'll be back in the spring to do the overlay of the paving and also the loading dock and the trash compactor area. That'll be done in the spring. The winter weather set in a little too early for us. So, but we're getting there, and we will have you guys in the new meeting room after the deliberative session. Mr. Parsons, do you have anything else on the building?
No, I'm good. Thank you, sir. Like our kitchen, I'm good.
Mr. Parsons has a vested interest in the kitchen, as you can imagine. So in terms of placement and those other issues, he's done a really nice job laying out the kitchen.
We did open the school store though Friday night for the first time. We had we opened at the girls' game, well attended. Did a nice job with the kids.
All right, great. And other business?
I'm all set.
Good. Meetings on the, we have motion to adjourn. Ross, Walter, Bernie.
Yeah.
Bernie, great. And Walter, thank you. Kenny Baker, Cooperative School Board. Thank you. I'd like to open that agenda review disposition.
I'm all set.
All right, we have the minutes for January 3rd, the minutes of the meeting and the budget hearing. Unless there are correction or amendments, they stand approved as written. Privilege of the floor. Mr. Boyd, I'm sorry, if you wanted to address the board, this would be an opportunity.
As I said, we look at our status in the community with these children as a partnership with the school and providing what they need to become valuable members of our society. I think it was proven here tonight that starting school 4 days, 4 days is what we're talking about. If you just look at October Columbus Day, I don't believe is a day that we have to take off. Here's one of those 4 days to get us into forecasting. It was October 11th, Teacher and Service Day, when I'm sure we can lose. Right? There's 2 of the 4 days that we're talking about. The massive hardship this puts on the businesses, right? And our partnership with you to create great graduates of this high school. Nobody expects there not to be any hardships. There's going to be some difficulties. Mr. Parsons might have to come in a day early or a week early just to meet with the athletes to have that conversation with them. That might be something we choose to do. We might lose a day or 2 of education prior to testing. There's certainly ways around it. We ask as a community that the school board works with us as in a partnership with the community to ensure that local rule continues into the future and government rule doesn't go. That's what we ask.
I just would like to state that Mr. Parsons is here throughout the summer, so it wouldn't mean he would need to come in here any earlier.
It's still going to change his day, and somehow, some way, it's going to have an impact on everybody in this room, on every student. But when you weigh the results, I mean, us losing our business for the last week in August would be the difference between us making money and losing money. And when you hit 90 days and you've lost money, there's no way to make that up. You have lost money for your year. And so what's a quarter for most businesses is our entire revenue generating portion of the year. And as I said at the start, the reason why this has reached the point it has with the government, with the governor considering taking control away from this board.
He's in charge of Waterville Valley.
Because, I'm sorry?
Because he's in charge of Waterville Valley.
Well, he's also in charge of the state, Mr. Geachman. I appreciate that. He's in charge of this state and the businesses and the communities that are here. And I will say to Mr. Halloran's point of having this meeting several years ago, we ended up moving to the library to continue that meeting. The school board at that point in time discussed starting school in mid-August. Right? It was just one solution on the table to get us out earlier. That's what we were told at the end of that meeting. It was something that they were considering. And I will say, when that was said and done, guess when we started school the next year? Mid-August. So as a community member and a business operator, we are nervous when we hear that. Right? Because we've been told this before and we got voted down. Right? We've been told that this is due to athletics, NHIA, AA, says that's not the case. My brother was told that this was because of the teachers union. The teachers union today said they've never had a formal conversation about that. We've been told a lot of different reasons for why school must start before Labor Day. Today was the first day that we heard about testing, but we've already found 2 of the 4 days needed to make that up. There's going to be some hardships, there's no doubt. But there already are significant hardships for the local community. We got lucky this year. with the unemployment rate the way it is, might not make it next year. That's many, many businesses in this town. I just hope that you consider that when you make this vote. Thank you.
Thank you. No, all right. Superintendent's report?
Yes, Madam Chair. Some of you saw the story in the, perhaps in the Union Leader, that there was $10 million left in special ed funds from districts who didn't spend all their money. We had received $546,921.83. Our balance in that account is $246.51. And Ethel said we had gone after that, but the state had denied our request for that money. So we got all but $246. And on the preschool side, we were awarded $14,407.52, and we got all of it but $2. So there are some districts that have some pretty good balances that I'd like to get my hands on, but I just wanted you to know what that was. SAU 48 in its entirety, the balance for all the districts. So your balance could have been $0, or it could have been $10 or $12. Those are all the balances within SAU 48. So if any member of the public approaches you about, how much money is ours, $246. If there is an opportunity to redistribute that money, please know we will go right after it. Ethel loves that kind of stuff, so she'll be right after it. But we have no criteria yet as to what the commissioner would do with that money. So that's the Union Leader story, and I do appreciate the story. And just for those folks on television, our deliberative session will be on Tuesday, February 5th at 6:30, and the district's budgets will be voted on warrant articles in all of the home districts on Tuesday, March 12th. That's my report.
Thank you. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Busy week. Started off by informing the board that we had our first senior seminar, and it was a full day for our seniors, and great participation. We had a guest speaker, presenter Justin McKinney, did a humorous job with the seniors on self-esteem and other pieces, and the kids worked. They went to a number of different workshops throughout the day. We had a therapy dog, and you name it, college presentation, financial piece. The kids had a great time. They had a full breakfast and a full lunch. I'm really proud of what the seniors had put into. Did a great job. Congratulations to Denise McGlone, and Tennille Torino, who worked extremely hard on planning that day. They got a couple of months to do it. We'll have another couple throughout the year. As you remember, it was a recommendation coming back from the SEC. So I'll get back to you as we prepare those dates. Congratulations in order for a young man. He's a junior, Michael Cappy. He's been accepted as a Senate page. He will leave Washington, D.C. I think January 24th to start his internship down there. I don't know who he's going to be paging for, but that's quite an honor for a young man to be able to do that. He's quite excited about that too. So Michael, he's our second student that we've had. So that's been a third. Can you just tell me when midterm? Excuse me, my report's been interrupted.
Who was the other one? The other Senate page?
Isabel Rawlinson was
Not sure what's going on.
I don't know who the third one was. And I think the midterms have been...
Wasn't one of the Mignamellis, was it?
No.
That's what I was remembering.
I don't think so. Could be. Could be. What else? Tonight, that's why I've been going back and forth. I have the honor of Mr. Clary is going to present for me. 40 students will be inducted into the National Technical Honor Society tonight. Great ceremony under the direction of our advisor, Lena McLean. So we're gearing up for our midterms and heading into quarter 3. It's been good. Questions or presentations?
Any questions from Bruce? All right, thank you.
Yep.
Committee progress report, facilities.
So we had an update on CTE, and the only other thing I just wanted, are we meeting Monday, February 18th? The holiday, that is President's Day.
That was questionable.
Okay.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
From,
I meant to ask.
do you know anything more, Janice? You don't?
I
Okay.
don't, I know, it was just questionable.
Okay.
So, not sure.
All right, great. So, yeah, we just had a CTE renovation update, and that was it.
All right, thank you. Policy and budget.
We had a follow-up meeting, reviewed the bargaining unit changes that deleted our nurse and our driver ed teacher, who I don't think we've had for 30 years, but anyway, from the bargaining unit. The nurse, of course, is now a contracted employee from the hospital. We approved those changes. We reviewed the revenue and appropriations update that Mark passed out, which are available on our website. We're financially in good shape, and we adjourned.
All right, thank you.
And so with program and staffing, we discussed the 2019-2020 school calendar and heard from a number of members of the community about whether to start before or after Labor Day. That was moved on to the board, the full board, to vote on at this time.
So the recommendation from the board is to adopt the calendar as presented by the administration with the August 26th start for this next calendar year. Any more discussions on that? Sorry, Mr. Deitch.
Yes. I think that this issue needs to be looked at over a period of time, and not at a committee meeting like this. We need to have some input from those spokespeople who are here tonight, from our faculty, maybe from some students, maybe get a representative from any other of the stakeholders, and get the full impact on each of them, and see if there's ways that we can try and accommodate this change. We'll know more about the legislation that is before the legislature this year. So, while I'm willing to support this committee recommendation for this year, I would hope that it would be something that maybe SCC could take up as part of its agenda for next year, and that we could have some real input on it, and people bring ideas, whether it's picking up a day here and a day there, whether it's changing a vacation week, whatever it might be. Let's get them all on the table and have another full discussion. It's been 10 years since we really discussed it in full, so let's do it right and have everyone get a chance to say what they want to say and see the issues. So with that, I will support the committee's recommendation this year.
Maureen?
I'd like to say that it's such a complex issue. It's for me, it's a little difficult to vote yea or nay tonight because it's affecting so many different sectors and so many different members of our community. I think that I would agree with Mr. Deitchman. I think we need more input from different sectors. I think the business community really came out in full force tonight, and we appreciate your coming and appreciate all your comments. We haven't really heard from the parents of other elementary students, of these students, of local folks that this could really impact. And so I would agree with Mr. Deitchman. I think if we need to vote on the calendar now for time reasons, I would vote for this calendar, but I would like to see a real in-depth discussion at a later time.
So I don't know if, I'm sorry, I don't know at what point you walked in, but I'm getting the feeling that we're willing to vote on this calendar for 1 year, but not with the understanding that it will always be before Labor Day, that we'll have a discussion with, a broader discussion with community members.
Well, if you have a broader discussion, have a broader discussion, to be very honest with you. All right?
Well, your elementary schools need to know what we're doing.
Yep.
And if we take on a 2 or 3 month discussion now, it's going to delay our reaching a calendar, delay them reaching a calendar.
Right.
I don't...
to Matt's point of Columbus Day, you know, if people want to have that conversation of the value of that weekend, I'm happy to have it. I mean, no one's falling on the sword over that. I mean, you have the Sandwich Fair crowd, you know, I mean, it's a different group of folks. But, I mean, there's nothing, other than Veterans Day, which is a static. That's just the way it is, and should be, quite frankly. You know, we're having these conversations. There are districts that take that Wednesday off before Thanksgiving. You know, and I've always been a proponent of doing a half day that day for a couple of reasons. But some districts do, some districts don't. And perhaps the conversation is, you know, you pass whatever calendar you want to pass this year, and then have that conversation in the at the spring SAU meeting about a really in-depth conversation. Because the one thing that folks want, regardless of start, is a coordinated calendar with the little kids and the big kids, and it's based on childcare. So I think people would appreciate that more than anything else, is a coordinated calendar. You know what? Thornton is the one district, they start with 3 days. Everyone else starts with 4 days, a different start. You know, well, why is that? Well, that's what Thornton likes to do. Well, how come? Well, I don't know, but that's what they like to do. So,
because they're Thornton.
Those are all interesting conversations when the 47 we were in one.
Was that the purpose of this past month, though, to gather that information?
Well, this is not a
This
discussion.
is to be voted on by the committee a month ago.
This is not, you're not taking input
They've
here
never had a
anymore.
conversation about talking with other districts.
But to get public input, we were going to get that input for the last month.
And we got that input, we appreciate the input, so, all right, thank you. So that motion is on the table.
Can I just say one last thing? I'm sorry. A couple of people have alluded to it. To try to, at some point, look at the days that are currently not scheduled to be in school, but shave those.
Sure.
So that it wouldn't have that negative effect on student learning. You know, you mentioned the October day. It's a teacher workshop day on the previous Friday, and then Columbus Day itself.
That as I understand it, and Mr. Parsons, correct me if I'm wrong, that's all about NEASC recertification.
Correct, yeah.
They coming up that day?
They're coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in a normal year, that's not there. That's just every 10 years.
And then we'll be done with
But
it.
even if it's not for this, in future years, if we could minimize school year days when kids aren't here, then that would, you know, relieve some of the pressure on when you start running.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, ready to vote? All those in favor of accepting the calendar year as presented by the administration, signify by raising your hand. And all those against. All right, so that motion did pass. There were no abstaining, is that correct? All right, that motion did pass. And then we have support staff nominations for non-public. SCC report?
I was not at the last meeting. Bruce, was in one of the...
Yes, I was. They continue to research starting school at a later date time during the day, and they broke up into subcommittees to deal with all the different issues, transportation, athletics, sending school. So they just broke up into their subcommittees as they continue to research and gather more information. Very busy group. Full group, so no decision. So I got a lot of research to do.
And the next meeting is February 4th?
Next, February, the first Monday in February.
Any board member concerns? Before we have a motion to go into non-public for the purpose of nominations, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Ross. This is his last meeting, and you've been on the board since the cooperative school district started.
Since it started, October of 1989 was our first board meeting over at Holden School,
So
with the infamous Paul Dulac in charge.
I just want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for your wisdom over the years. You've been a pillar, and you will be missed.
Well, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to be on the board, and wish you all the best of luck with the changes that are going to occur in the next few years. So
We'll need it. Thank you. So do I hear a motion to go into non-public session? Maureen, seconded by Lisa. Thank you. All those in favor? Well, I guess I have to take the voice.